We said about a year ago when the left and the Democrats started talking about domestic terrorism and how the biggest threat to the American homeland are domestic terrorists. And we're like, what are you talking? Who are they? They were talking about you. I told you that a year ago. They're talking about you. And I got the latest example of it. Today's example. This is the Department of Justice. They wrote this memo, the opening paragraph. In recent months, there's been a disturbing spike in harassment, intimidation, and threats of violence against school administrators, board officials, teachers, blah, blah, blah. While spirited debate among policy matters is protected under our Constitution, that protection does not extend to threats of violence or efforts to intimidate individuals based on their views. So this is super interesting. Seemingly random Department of Justice memo talking about local school boards? Like, what's the Department of Justice talking about school boards? And the FBI, we're bringing the FBI into this. What is happening here? Where did this come from? It is a response to the National School Board Association, which of course is a very far left group. They wrote a long, it's like 7 or 9 page letter to the President of the United States. I just want to share a couple of the quotes here. Again, this is the National School Board Association. They said, to the President, America's public schools and its education leaders are under an immediate threat, coupled with attacks, oh goodness, against school board members for approving policies for masks, to protect the health and safety of students and school employees. Many public officials are also facing physical threats because of propaganda purporting the false inclusion of critical race theory within classroom instruction and curricula. This propaganda continues, despite the fact that critical race theory is not taught in public schools. Real quick sidebar on that one, because that's hilarious. This is a little trick they do with the critical race theory thing. They'll be like, critical race theory is not taught in schools. That's a law school thing. They teach in law schools, not kindergarten. Like, technically, yes, you're not teaching our kindergartners what they teach in law school, as you call that very specific thing, critical race theory. But the essence of what critical race theory is taught all the way down to our 5th graders. But anyway, that's a different show. Here's the key. As these acts of malice, violence, and threats against public school officials have increased, the classification of these heinous actions could be the equivalent to a form of domestic terrorism and hate crimes. What do you say, Department of Justice, huh? You want to call these people domestic terrorists? Amazing. Now, I read, this is a great example of a little gaslighting in front of I just read the National Association of School Boards letter, okay? And that's an actual quote from it. I'm not paraphrasing, that's the quote. The Associated Press this morning did a fact check, and they said, contrary to false claims circulating online, the National School Board Association did not ask President Joe Biden to label protesting parents domestic terrorists. I just read it. Like, what are you talking about? Here's another line. How about that? Maybe that other line didn't quite do it for you. How about this one? The National School Board Association requests that such review examine appropriate enforceable actions against those crimes and acts of violence under the Gun-Free School Zones Act, the Patriot Act, in regards to domestic terrorism. So there it is again. But no, they're not calling you domestic terrorists. So what are they talking about? That's the thing, like, what crimes? Like, what a weird thing. Like, what are these crimes and acts of violence that they're even talking about? They actually give some examples. Now, this is my job to debunk these things. You can't be expected to do this. You have your own job. You have your own life to live. But even just, you don't have to do research. Just think for a second. If some conservative or anyone bombed a school board meeting, you probably would have heard of that by now. Don't you think it probably would have made the news if a bomb went off during a school board meeting? If someone tried to burn down the local school board, if someone opened fire at a school board meeting, you probably would have heard of that. I haven't, because it's not happened. I've heard of no violence at school board meetings. Even if like someone ran up and attacked a school board member, like punched a school board member in the face, you would have heard about that. None of that's happened. So you don't even need to do research into this. It's just common sense. And they're talking about a spike in violence. A spike in, check this out from CNN. This is amazing. CNN, they wrote this today. U.S. records highest increase in nation's homicide rate in modern history, CDC says. Wow, okay, so we got a largest increase in our homicide rate in the country. It's amazing, in the world, or in history. Incredible. Here's one of the quotes from the story. This is the director of the American Public Health Association. He said the rise in homicides has occurred parallel to a recent rise in overall violence, hate, tensions, political divisions, and anger displayed in communities across the country. Quote, we're literally seeing in front of our eyes at school board meetings and public events. What? See how coordinated this is? I've never in my entire life heard anything about violence and school boards. And now you have CNN talking about homicide and somehow weaving school boards into it? The violence from school boards? Just to be clear, there's been no homicides committed at a school board meeting. That's the first thing. But why even bring up school board meeting? How could your local school board meeting have anything to do with the rise in homicides in Chicago? What does your school board meeting have anything to do with the 40 people who were shot this weekend in Chicago, who were all shot nowhere near a school board meeting? So you see what they're trying to do there? They're trying to convince other people that you, speaking to the school board of your kid's school, you're acting like a terrorist. And they're doing that to silence you. And they're making it all up. They're making it all up. You know what they're doing here. There's no real violence. But they're threatening you. They're threatening you. Your comments, your tone is not welcome here. So we're going to get the FBI involved? We're going to start calling you domestic terrorists? This is a big deal. You cannot allow the left to turn dissent or disagreement into domestic terrorism. When free speech is shut down on a local level by threats of sicking the FBI on you because of your tone, that is a huge problem that transcends any issue that is even being debated here, right? Here, the federal government is going to label you a domestic terrorist for engaging in a public comment period at a local school board meeting for your child's school. Who could possibly be okay with this? Most people don't know about it, which is why I always end every segment with spread the word.
Wow, that was deep and insightful. I want more of that.
Like, subscribe, get more.